Thompson Show here at the Marina Variety Store Restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston. Appreciate you joining us in person, on the air, or online as well, as we are with you for the next hour with the coach here on ESPN Radio 94.7, 9:10 a.m., and plenty of the Bulldog faithful in attendance with us here at the Marina Variety Store Restaurant following a win for the Bulldogs this past weekend in Georgia, 38-31 over Mercer. Coach, how are you tonight?
Well, certainly a lot better than I was last week at this time. So, we're doing all right. We had a good day of practice. We've had a pretty good week of practice as well. So, I'm happy with where we are at right now.
Yeah, following that win, I was going to ask you about the week of practice. Have you noticed a difference in the guys following the victory compared to practices after a couple of losses to start the year?
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to motivate them after a win for sure, and especially coming back on Sunday. You know, Sundays can be difficult after a Saturday game when especially you lost a close one. We were off for about 7 days or so. When we got back to it, I thought we had a pretty good week last week, even though Monday was a little bit of a rough start. So we knew we needed it getting back into this week because this week was going to be a little bit of a shorter week for us.
Bulldogs coming off a win in Mercer, 38-31 on Saturday, following those two close losses to begin the year. First 28-21 at Wofford, and then 29-28 in overtime against Chattanooga. This week, they'll be stepping out of conference to take on Towson. We'll preview that game in the second half of the program tonight. But let's talk about that first win of the year this past weekend at Mercer. Another wild game for the Bulldogs. You and your club able to pull it out. How important was that victory to now get to 1-2 in the conference here moving forward, as opposed to, of course, the alternative?
You know, I sat here last week and we talked about just putting us back on the Southern Conference map. Mercer certainly put themselves on the map with a win over Sanford, a pretty good Sanford team. So we knew that we had to go up there and play our best and give them our best just to have a chance to win. And I thought we did. We played well in all three phases of the game. That's not to say that we didn't make some mistakes. We certainly did. We certainly would have liked to have done some things, a little bit better at times. But overall, I was just happy that all three phases contributed to the win.
And when we were here last week, we were talking about the team trying to come back from that week off after Hurricane Florence. It seems like they were able to handle that adversity well because, of course, it ended up leading to the win.
You know, I said at my press conference just yesterday, and I was just really impressed that we had gotten everybody back. I think we may have missed one or two guys for a little portion of practice on Monday, but when you're trying to get about 115 guys or so back from a little bit of a fall break there, it can be very challenging. And I was just happy that they all came back. They all came back ready to practice. Even though it wasn't a great practice, we felt like we had to start someplace.
After the game, you told us on the radio, with the raw emotion of the victory, that it may have been the best win for you here at the Citadel. Now a couple of days removed, able to look back at the film, calm down, all that sort of stuff. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I think it's a best overall win because all three phases contributed to this win. It was a great team win for us. It certainly was the first of the year against a pretty good football team. I can put it probably in there with about two other wins that I can think of right off the top of my head. In 2016, the win over Wofford was certainly that was a heavily defensive-sided game there, and then the Sanford win, which was a pretty good win. I thought we had mostly about all three phases of the same 2016 year that contributed. It was a homecoming win for us, so I thought that was those three wins probably are right up there right now.
Speaking of 2016, that of course was your first year as the head coach. Your first game was at that stadium in Mercer. You get the win that first game. Overall, in your time with the Citadel, you're 3-0 in that stadium against Mercer. When you were there on Saturday, we talked about it last week, now that it's happened, were you able to have that moment on Saturday to kind of reminisce about your first game there a couple of years back?
Just prior to the kickoff, the national anthem was going on. I stepped outside the locker room for a little bit, and I just kind of took it all in. I went out the backside, and I actually got locked out of the locker room, but I did take a couple minutes to just kind of collect my thoughts, gather my thoughts about what the last time was there, and get myself ready to be able to go out there and call the game.
And this time leading to the win 38-31 in dramatic fashion. The kick return touchdown in the final minute that ended up being the deciding touchdown. But in the game, a bit of a slow start. You guys fell behind 10 points in the second quarter. Now the team has erased double-digit deficits in all three games this year. As a head coach, I imagine that makes you proud that your team's able to battle back week in and week out, and most recently turned it into a W.
I guess my concern is we only have 7 points in the first quarter. We need to still get off to a little bit of a quicker start. Yeah, we fell behind by 10. We had another drive that we were able to put together, and that 7 points came in this game right here. So we're getting a little bit better in the first quarter, but we've got to do much better. We didn't have the things that got us the last couple of opening drives didn't get us this time around. We were able to move the ball, flip the field a little bit, pin them back deep. We gave up a long drive there, and then we were able to battle back. But I think the first half and the first quarter, we could still do a lot of things a little bit better. We were able to kind of put put the big points on the board right before the halftime. I thought that was critical.
Yeah, you touched on it. Your first point scored in the first quarter of this year, coming in this past game against Mercer. But when you look at the numbers, the slow starts in the first quarter, but when you guys come out in the third quarter, you've outscored the opponents by 24-7. You've outscored them in the fourth quarter. Dating back to the beginning of last season, the difference from first half to second half is about a 150-point differential. All that saying, is it the team's stamina that helps you guys outlast these teams come the second half? Is it halftime adjustments? What has led to that big turnaround in the second half, not only this year, but last year as well?
We did emphasize and we did focus. In fact, in camp, we broke our practices up into 4 quarters, and we put emphasis on every single quarter, especially the third and the fourth quarter for us. We broke them up with water breaks. We kind of broke them up like a little bit of a halftime during our summer camp. That may have contributed to some of it. We do a great job with our staff of being able to make some game time adjustments, come out with a pretty good plan on what we need to get done. And then the fourth quarter does come down to stamina, and it always does. I think we're in pretty good shape. We still need to continue to keep on working on that as we still get some hot weather down here that you never know what kind of a game you're going to run into where the heat could be pretty high.
You mentioned that late touchdown in the first half to get you within 3 heading into the locker room. Offensively, I believe the Bulldogs, you punted on 3 of the first 4 possessions in that game, and then you didn't punt the rest of the game, if I remember correctly. What changed offensively from the middle of the second quarter to the rest of the game where it was score, score, score?
So, the first drive ends in a little bit of a punt. We felt like we flipped the field a little bit. Unfortunately, we put the ball into the end zone. We come out in the second drive, and we put together about a 15, 16-play drive, and we mixed up our formations, and we were just kind of testing, and we were hunting and pecking a little bit. And we were really just doing what we do, 4 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, just getting first downs, going for it on fourth down a few times. And then you start to hunt and peck around a little bit more, and that's where I think we got into trouble. I think we tested the secondary a little bit early, didn't convert on a 1st and 10 where we attempted a pass, and that's always going to set us behind. But we're always looking to score, and we're always looking to drive the football down the field. So late in the second half, late in the second quarter there, right at the end of the first half, we ended up getting a little bit antsy with it. I think we were trying to press, we were trying to score a little bit. We give the ball back without killing very much time at all, and we flipped the field. They flipped the field on us, gave them a short field, gave them a touchdown, and I blame myself for that. We could have done a better job of managing the clock at that scenario. We come back the next drive, we get pinned with Rod Johnson stepping out of bounds about the 3-yard line right there, and all we really needed to do was I was just testing to see if we can get a first down. If we can get out of here, I was going to take a shot down the field, and certainly that shot did pay off for us, and that really was probably the thing that propelled us to the halftime. Through the halftime, we kept the momentum going. Unfortunately, we did give up a drive at the start of the third quarter, but to be honest with you, I was happy with where we were at. I thought we were moving the football, and we had some confidence moving into the half.
Yeah, let's dive into that long touchdown pass. You kind of just touched on what I was going to ask you anyways, but when you score that touchdown, it makes it a 3-point deficit heading into the locker room, and despite trailing, it seemed like you guys had the momentum, and then you came out in the second half, and as mentioned, it was score after score after score. So when looking at the entirety of that game, how important was that one play, the 77-yard touchdown pass to Webb?
It certainly was. Is if we fall behind, because if you don't get a touchdown there, and then you go ahead and you get behind by another score when you're kicking the ball off, I think that becomes a little bit a steeper hill for us to climb. We constantly got to remind ourselves, especially on the offensive side, is that, hey, stay with your game plan, stay with your game plan. You start to get out of your game plan once you get more than 2 scores behind. That's where it becomes a little bit difficult for us. So we kept the ball game tight going in there. 3 points is not a deficit that we can't erase. That's a fairly simple one for us. But much like we did in the Wofford game, we were able to get some points before the halftime. Somebody just made a play. Noah Dawkins made a play in that game. Raleigh Webb just comes out and makes a big play for us in that game, and that's what we're looking for. And that's what we tell ourselves. We just need one guy that's going to step up and make a play for us, and we're going to be fine.
And when we were sitting here last week, we were talking about how he hadn't had a catch yet, and then he goes off for a career-long 77-yard touchdown to get you right back in it before the half. Take us into the film room of that play without revealing any sort of secrets, the thought process behind that specific play, and then how it worked so well, because when he caught that football, no one was within about 20 yards, it seemed.
Yeah, so what you got to remember is that we've been in that formation. It's a nasty alignment split. We're in a tight alignment with our wide receiver right there, and we've been running the football fairly effectively out of that alignment. So we've got a play action off of it where if the safety starts to get a little bit too far outside of that wide receiver, we're going to try to get him him on the post route, and all we're trying to do is the backside safety is he's going to be able to take the dig. The A-back, who's a little bit tighter in the formation than the wide receiver, he runs the dig in that concept right there, and he's going to hold the backside safety. So once that play side safety just out leverages that wide receiver, we know we've got the post ball open. We figured it was best to try to boot the quarterback. We boot the quarterback to get him more towards the middle of the field. That helps with a post throw. So when you put it all together, it was a wide open Raleigh Webb, and it was a pretty well protected play for us. And we were able to get the quarterback a little bit stretched on the perimeter, move the pocket for him. And to Jordan's credit, it's still very difficult to hit wide open receivers at times. Sometimes it's the hardest throw to make.
You have such a great memory for these plays and the specific details of all these plays and as the games go. Did you happen to see that video of Sean McVay calling out plays that he called years prior?
Now that is a talent. That is because he was going through certain scoring plays. That I did see that video. He was that he had gone back maybe about 15 or 16 years and some of those things. And I can remember certain plays going back there, but I think that's a special talent. I think he's got some pretty good memory there.
Yeah, you seem pretty close. This past game, a win for the Bulldogs, 38-31 at Mercer. All three games this year, from a broadcasting perspective, have just been wild games to call, highly entertaining for the fans. Of course, I know you'd want to come out of there with 3 victories as opposed to just the one in Mercer, but as a coach on the sideline, what is it like to be coaching in those games where it's kind of like a roller coaster for the entire 60 minutes?
Yeah, you constantly got to keep yourself within your own thoughts. You got to keep yourself in the game plan. You got to keep yourself in the game, just trying to figure out how's this thing going to play out? How do we need to play this thing? What did you do last time? You always learn from all the games. What did you do last time that you wanted to change? Like this game, we went into it saying, we wanted to be more aggressive. We were going to blitz a little bit more. We were going to take more shots down the field. And you keep on reminding yourself of that, this is what you wanted to do. Stay with your game plan. Stay with it, ready to go. Go after punts. Those are the things that we need to do, is put pressure on the punter. Try to create a shank or try to create a block, just like we did in the Chattanooga game. Those are things that we need to do all the time. The other thing is we need to be aggressive on 3rd and 4th down. Hey, do I have 4 downs to get this thing? Do we need to punt this thing and flip the field position on it? How's our defense playing? What is this ball game? Is it going to come down to a 1-possession game? Is it going to come down to a field goal game? And that kind of came into our thoughts there right around the 35-yard line. We got ourselves behind the sticks again. We had an opportunity to put points on the board, and we had to go for it on 4th down because I think we were just outside of field goal range.
Bulldogs won this past Saturday 38-31 against Mercer. We're recapping it here on the Coach Brent Thompson Show from the Marina Variety Store restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive, with many of the Bulldog faithful in attendance with us and those online and on the air as well. The coach's wings have arrived. Let's take a break. We'll come back, and we'll continue to break down the win from this past Saturday. It's the Coach's Show here on ESPN Radio, 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
Hey Bulldogs, I'm Danielle Hensley, and this is your Bulldog Breakdown. Men and women's cross country take the trail once again this weekend at USC Upstate for the Upstate Invitational. Rifle opened their season last week when the men and women's team traveled to VMI. The Dogs claimed the win 45-25 to 44-21 and will hold on to VMI's range flag until they meet up again in January. Max Barbson's 11:48 finish claimed him top honors overall and in the discipline. Women's golf will tee up for the first time this season at the University of South Carolina Beaufort, starting this Sunday for the Sand Shark Invitational. The Bulldog soccer team brought home 2 losses last week as they faced Samford and Chattanooga. This week, they're looking to bounce back at home versus UNCG on Friday. Kickoff set for 3 p.m. You can also support the Dogs on Sunday as they host VMI at 2 p.m. Volleyball advanced to 7-6 overall as they tallied 3 wins just last week. The Dogs overcame South Carolina State, UNCG, and Western Carolina. Junior Sarah DeBrick was named the SoCon Defensive Player of the Week, finishing with 3 solo blocks, 13 block assists, and 9 digs in the 3-game stretch. This week, the team will travel to Wofford College on Friday before playing the Paladins at Furman on Saturday. First serve set for 7 p.m. To round us out, football came out with a victory over Mercer when junior Rod Johnson, with less than a minute on the clock, returned a kickoff 94 yards for a touchdown, earning him SoCon Special Teams Player of the Week. This weekend, they will travel to face their first non-conference opponent, Towson, on Saturday, kickoff set for 4 p.m. And that is all this week for your Bulldog Breakdown. I'm Danielle Hensley. Go Dogs!
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious. Style. Selection. Service. Quality. Value. See.
Bart, why are you winding the clock back?
The clock stated 11:35 p.m., but they are still working.
The clock is fine. Our live customer service is available all night, and all day for that matter. He's learning.
At TD Bank, we do things differently.
Hello?
Like live customer service.
Hello?
24/7. Don't just bank, bank human.
We build our communities. We earn our success. We, as South Carolinians, work best together. Don't follow your bank into the impersonal world of mergers. Make a change. Visit South Atlantic Bank to talk with local bankers who care about the Low Country. Our local headquarters will be ready next year on Johnny Dodds Boulevard. Until then, stop by our current location. You'll find a community bank with a proven track record of financial success. South Atlantic Bank. People you know and trust.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
All right, 15. To the Marina Variety Store Restaurant here at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston. It's the Coach Brent Thompson Show. And we're joined, of course, by the coach here throughout this hour talking about the latest win for the Bulldogs this past week, 38-31 at Mercer, and the big play from that game, the kick return touchdown, 94 yards for Rod Johnson in the final minute that ended up being the deciding touchdown. First kick return touchdown for a Bulldog since 2002, and the longest kick return touchdown, third longest in program history. Coach, as that play is developing and you're on the sideline, at what point did you realize you'd be able to take it all the way?
To be honest with you, I thought the kicker had him. The kicker was right on the sideline. The kicker didn't bother Rod at all. It bothered me probably more than Rod as I saw it coming at me, and I'm like, okay, we're going to call a play call. And it was right around midfield here, so I'm thinking about, we just got to get in the field goal range from there. We've got a few minutes to try to get this thing. And as soon as he got by the kicker, I looked around, and I didn't see anybody there with him. So at that point, it was probably somewhere around midfield that I realized that he was going to take it all the way to the distance. And as I said yesterday, I didn't know that Rod had that kind of a speed to get away from all those guys. And then you look on the film, and there's guys like Gunnar Covey back there who is staying step with him, and there's plenty of guys that are in white jerseys out there too.
Heading out onto the field, when the team was heading out onto the field for that kick return, first, did you think they were even going to give you a chance for a return? They had 3 touchbacks in 5 kickoffs prior to that. Were you surprised that you had an opportunity for a return? Yeah,
there's 2 thoughts there. One is you can, try to kick it deep and cover it, which is usually what we try to do. And then if you don't have so much confidence, you try to squib the kick down there. But we were talking about it as a staff. I've seen kickers going out there and miss a squib kick and fire it right at a guy in the front line. Right. And you give him the ball right at the 50-yard line. So you don't want to do that either. So, that's a complete, judgment call on what you think your kicker can do best. And they decided to kick it deep, and they gave us a chance. I think the ball went to the 3-yard line or so, and at that point, we've just got to be able to return it. We've got nothing else really left. Let's just take some couple shots down the field.
Was anything said to Rod personally before he went out there, like, if it's kicked to you, try to take it back?
No, we were returning it. Yeah, we were going to try to return this thing as best we could, and if we didn't get a great return, we eat the clock, we go into overtime. We've been there before.
You mentioned something on the radio with us again after the game on Saturday that last week he was asking you about kick returns in program history, almost like he was calling his shot.
Yeah, so we made an adjustment right after the Wofford game to put him back there as the returner, and a couple of weeks go by, and he thought he had a pretty good chance. He was starting to get a rhythm and a feel for it, as our starting AA back, so we don't usually put those guys back there. So he wanted to go back there, so he asked me, he said, when was the last time that the Citadel returned a kick for a touchdown? And I looked around and I said, I don't think it's been the one since I've been here. And that was about 4 or 5 days prior to that. I was in an ABAC meeting just sitting there, just him and I just hanging out. And sure enough, he called a shot. I walked up to him after and I said, you called your shot today. He was grasping for air, but he got it.
Yeah, and of course that's such a big time first kick return touchdown in 16 years for the Citadel, helped lead to the victory. You touched on it in the opening segment. He had a kick return earlier in the game where he caught it by the sideline, stepped out of bounds at about the 4-yard line, had you guys pinned back. You turned it into the long touchdown. But after a play like that, was there any second thought to send him out there later on in the game?
No, not at all. We trust Rod. He knew he made a mistake there. He was hard on himself. In fact, I didn't realize this. I heard the whole dialogue after between him and Grant going in at halftime. He was explaining to Grant on how well he didn't play. He kind of explained it yesterday, and how well he wasn't playing, and that he really needed to pick his game up, and he certainly did. We trusted him all the way throughout. It's one of those things where you got to know where you are on the field, and we certainly could have called for the fair catch there and gotten the ball in the 25.
Special teams as a whole have been excellent through the first 3 games, not just the return game, but of course your freshman kicker, the kickoffs as well. Really, all aspects of special teams have seemed to be performing highly.
Yeah, the only thing that we missed the one field goal. Other than that, I think we've played very well on special teams. We've flipped the field a couple of times. We've gotten the block kick. We've had a little bit on the punt return game, and then certainly the kick return game's been well for us.
Not that the poor job has been done in the past, but you took over the A-backs this year. Special teams coach J.P. Gunter putting all of his resources now into special teams this year. Has that certainly helped this unit get even better this season compared to years past?
Absolutely. When you commit more manpower to something, you put more emphasis on it. They're not just a castaway. Coach Gunner's got the day to be able to sit there and diagram and figure out what's going to be best for the return game. And for me, it's a little bit more because I've got to coach the A-back, but I enjoy coaching that. And it gives me a little bit of investment in the offense than I already have. But also it allows us to be able to spread our manpower out and kind of cover all of our bases. Now, when it comes to game days, I don't think twice about the special teams out there, which is very nice.
Now, let's talk about another one of those A-backs. It was Rod Johnson who had the big play, or one of the big plays with the kick return. Riley Webb had another big play with the long touchdown pass. But Grant Drakeford in that game touched the football 11 times, and that led to a total of 198 yards. He had a pretty good game Saturday.
He did. He was feeling it. He was feeling pretty good. And let me tell you something. Not all of them were great play calls either. I mean, he scores on a terrible play call by me. I mean, we tossed the ball out there. We got too many guys on the perimeter. We make a pretty good block out there. He makes another guy miss. He runs, gets in the corner of the end zone. And that's what you do when you're feeling it. He had perfectly set up on the long run that it was a little handback play that we've got that he ripped off for about 50 or 60 yards. He really set that play up fairly well. As he set the linebacker up, the linebacker was going to come get him. The tackle came through, the guard came through and got him, set it up, and he hit the thing vertical and split the safeties. So he did a lot of that work on his own. Some of those things were just natural. He's got a good feel being an older guy. He knows what to do, and he's very, 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 very passionate about playing football out there.
He's had twice as many catches this year, I believe, than he did in his career previously to this year. How big of an impact has he had in that passing game?
As I told the guys after the game, is especially on the offensive side, I think is when you're able to do a good job of running the football and getting first downs and pounding the rock. The next phase of it is being able to score big touchdowns, and that's what we've been able to do. Is we drove the field against Chattanooga. We had some pretty comfortable, passing plays that we were able to go to against Chattanooga. This week we hit the big pass play, and Grant hits another big pass play for us. So if we can stretch the defense that way, we'll be a much better offense than running the football as well.
Just overall, the passing game on Saturday, Jordan Black went 5 for 10, 167 yards. Of course, that's 77-yard touchdown pass late in the first half. What was your assessment of the passing game on Saturday?
Yeah, I thought we did a great job with it. There was, we had missed a little bit of a route. We ran a little bit of a wrong route on one of them. That got us off track a little bit. We missed a read. I think we probably should have thrown to another receiver on another route. But we started the game off with a good 13, 14-yard gainer to Grant as well. So I think Jordan's done a good job of managing the pass game. You got to understand that when we go out there and practice, we practice about 2/3 of our practices with the run game, and about 1/3 of it is with the pass game.
Yeah, so with that said, the triple option offense, of course, so much of it is running the football, controlling the clock. I imagine it's a huge advantage, a huge help when you can convert some of those big pass plays as well.
Yeah, it's something that you don't always count on, but you're probably going to need more often than not.
And then on the other side of the football, the defense, I thought, performed better than maybe some of the numbers suggested. 31 points at the end of the day, but the defense, how did you feel they performed throughout that game at Mercer?
Well, I thought they did well. we did give them a short field, and they were able to flip the field on a punt return, as we talked about earlier. That certainly doesn't help. But other than that, I thought our defense played well. We made them very one-dimensional. Our defensive line played about as good as I've seen them play in a long time. We held up, and we got a couple turnovers in the secondary there. So we put a little bit of pressure on the quarterback. We got a couple quarterback sacks and TFLs. So really, it was great to see guys on the defensive line get into it. Jalen Williams had a good day. Ken Allen's, doing some things in the backfield there. Sean Mccord is doing a great job. I mean, he was part of that fifth-year crew that's really starting to help us out and get into the groove.
Yeah, you mentioned making them one-dimensional. They were a team that previously really liked to run the football, much like you guys, and control the clock as well, but you held them to just 32 rushing yards. So.
Yeah, it helps when you get a couple sacks and a couple TFLs for those rushing yards, but yeah, we did do a good job. At the half, I think they were right around their 25, 30 yards as well. If you can do that, you notice what they wanted to do against Sanford. They wanted to be a very balanced attack, and they were. We knew that we couldn't sit back on them. We had to probably penetrate their gaps a little bit, get upfield on them, put a little bit of pressure on them, make the quarterback make some reads, and I think he made some hell of a throws, and there's some great catches.
Those adjustments, those different things that you just mentioned, was that what led to the difference in pressuring the quarterback? The team had 1 sack, I believe, the first 2 games, then 5 sacks. You were all over the quarterback on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. That was part of it. It was the same thing going into it. We knew we had to be aggressive on both offense and defense.
And it helped lead to that win, 38-31 for the Bulldogs on Saturday. I know you already said in the open it's one of your favorite wins here. Does that make it the most complete game in terms of a Bulldog performance this season?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We played more. We played almost about to our ability. I think we still got a little bit more to go, but there's still plenty of season to go. I like where we are right now. Of course, I want to see us improve every single week.
Now, the Bulldogs 1-2 right now to start the year. 3 straight games in the conference, coming off the win at Mercer on Saturday, 38-31, and now getting ready to head out on the road and step out of conference play this Saturday when they take on Towson. We'll talk about that matchup and a little bit more when we come back next. We're at the Marina Variety Store restaurant here at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston. It's the Coach Brent Thompson Show as we take a break on ESPN Radio 94.7 and 910 AM.
I reckon I've been hanging around a while. Now I don't move like I used to, but I still get the job done. So what if I fall down now and then? I get right back up again sooner or later.
What is your garage door saying? A brand new garage door from Overhead Door could be the upgrade your home is asking for. The genuine, the original Overhead Door. Just look for the red ribbon logo.
The corners of a city street, a table in a cafe seat. I got it, I don't miss a beat, oh no. Walking down the avenue, be it gray or be it blue. Live 5 News everywhere I go. You're everywhere, got you everywhere, everywhere I go. Whoa, 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 everywhere I go.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Mark Lee became the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq, sacrificing his life for our freedoms and his SEAL teammates. America's Mighty Warriors was born out of Mark's challenge to pass on the kindness, the love, the precious gift of human life. We honor our troops and Gold Star families by providing programs that assist recovery after injury or loss. Partner with us by making a generous donation. Text MARK to 234-231-9284. America's Mighty Warriors, supporting our troops and the families of the fallen.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
Hey Bulldogs, I'm Danielle Hensley, and this is your Bulldog Breakdown. Men and women's cross country take the trail once again this weekend at USC Upstate for the Upstate Invitational. Rifle opened their season last week when the men and women's team traveled to VMI. The Dogs claimed the win 45-25 to 44-21 and will hold on to VMI's range flag until they meet up again in January. Max Barbson's 11:48 finish claimed him top honors overall and in the discipline. Women's golf will tee up for the first time this season at the University of South Carolina Beaufort, starting this Sunday for the Sand Shark Invitational. The Bulldog soccer team brought home 2 losses last week as they faced Samford and Chattanooga. This week, they're looking to bounce back at home versus UNCG on Friday. Kickoff set for 3 p.m. You can also support the Dogs on Sunday as they host VMI at 2 p.m. Volleyball advanced to 7-6 overall as they tallied 3 wins just last week. The Dogs overcame South Carolina State, UNCG, and Western Carolina. Junior Sarah DeBrick was named the SoCon Defensive Player of the Week, finishing with 3 solo blocks, 13 block assists, and 9 digs in the 3-game stretch. This week, the team will travel to Wofford College on Friday before playing the Paladins at Furman on Saturday. First serve set for 7 p.m. To round us out, football came out with a victory over Mercer when junior Rod Johnson, with less than a minute on the clock, returned a kickoff 94 yards for a touchdown, earning him SoCon Special Teams Player of the Week. This weekend, they will travel to face their first non-conference opponent, Towson, on Saturday, kickoff set for 4 p.m. And that is all this week for your Bulldog Breakdown. I'm Danielle Hensley. Go Dogs!
And we welcome you back to the Coach Brent Thompson Show here from the Marina Variety Store Restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston, with many Bulldog fans on hand with us in person. Of course, on the radio with us as well, and online with the video being streamed on YouTube. If you want to join the conversation, you can tweet your questions using hashtag AskCoachThompson. We'll get them on the air as we now turn our attention to the Towson game coming up here Saturday. 3 straight games in the conference for the Bulldogs. First time they've done that since 1926, and it resulted in the 1-2 start with a victory 38-31 this past Saturday at Mercer. Now they take on Towson out of conference this Saturday. And Coach, you mentioned in your press conference yesterday that you're excited about a game like this, getting out of the conference, traveling up north, and taking on a new team in Towson.
Yeah, I was excited up to the point where I realized how far away it really was.
Yes.
But it was, when we talked about scheduling this game, we were just talking about scheduling out of conference, getting away, getting out of region, and let's go play someplace else, and let's do something a little bit different. We were talking about home and home, and when I think we were coming off a pretty good year, we were 10-2 and 16, and we're trying to schedule games. It gets to be very challenging scheduling out of conference games. Not a whole lot of teams always want to play. They don't want to prepare for the triple option. So really, it's kind of get what you can get at some point, and that's how we ended up with this game. And but for us is out of region, it'll be a good little trip up there. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to leave tomorrow. It'll be a 2-day trip for us, but it'll be fun. The weather's different up there. The environment's different. The climate's different up there. It's a CAA opponent. We always hear how the CAA is such a great conference there, and they've always got about 5 or 6 teams ranked. So it's an opportunity to get out of your conference, play somebody other than a Big South team, and get up there and hopefully come away with a win.
What did you like about that idea of getting out of this region and going maybe a little bit further away for an opponent?
Sometimes the unknown is a lot of fun for both sides. Is for us, we face so many teams that have faced the triple option that maybe it's a little bit of a different, different defense you're going to see. Kind of somebody that really hasn't seen it in a while, doesn't prepare for it a whole lot. Maybe one of those kind of a games.
Do you think that gives an advantage more so to a team that runs a triple option, or is it a whole lot of unknowns on both sides?
Yeah, it's challenging on both sides. I know just preparing for it's been very challenging for us. Is what are we going to see? What kind of different looks you've got? And really nothing to go against. You're really just trying to figure it out based upon a couple of things that you may have seen, may have heard, may have gone and done some research on.
It's about an 8.5-hour drive, as you mentioned, and the team, you guys will be splitting it up, leaving tomorrow. What are the travel plans here to break up this trip?
We will be driving. We're going to leave here after practice. We're going to practice tomorrow. We're going to get something to eat, and then we're going to travel up to Roanoke Rapids. We're going to stay there, and then we're going to continue the trip, practice in Richmond, and get a little bit of a walkthrough in Richmond, and then continue all the way up. We should be up in Baltimore by about 4 o'clock tomorrow. Or, 4 o'clock on Friday.
I was going to say, that'd be quite a fast bus drive.
Awesome.
Does that make it tougher for a team when you have to spread the travel over 2 days, 8.5 hours on the road? Does that add to the difficulty?
I think if you're not used to it, it definitely would. But we do it every year. We've gone last year. We had to go to UTC for a double for a 2-night stay, and we also did a 2-night stay at Sanford. So every other year we're doing it at least once, sometimes twice. This year we'll do it twice again because the Alabama trip will be the same thing.
Couple of questions coming in on Twitter. One being that does a trip like this, getting away from this area, does that help with recruiting at all or exposure at all for the program?
We do some recruiting up there. We do have some players from the Northeast, from Pennsylvania maybe, that would be able to come down. But we didn't do it necessarily for those reasons, but we do like to get out of the region. The good thing that we do have is a strong Citadel club up there. The greater Baltimore, they've always kind of contacted us, the Washington, D.C. area, Northern Virginia. So it would be great to see some of those regional fans come up and visit us, being that they're so close to the capital, and we're so close to the capital at this point.
Another question that came in from a fan is if you can reveal it, any future opponents like this out of the conference that maybe the Citadel hasn't played before or anything?
No, I don't think that we do have anything scheduled like that. We've got our FBS games that we're still working on. We've got a few of those already done, but nothing out of region, too far out of the conference. We'll have these guys again for a home and home. They will come back again next year for us, the first game of the year next year. But other than that, I think we're back regional again.
This is the first ever matchup between the Citadel and Towson on the football field. They're ranked number 25 right now in the country, and they've had a pretty good program over the years under head coach Rob Ambrose. Do you like the timing of this game in terms of non-conference? We know because of Hurricane Florence, it changed the schedule a little bit. You had 3 straight in the conference to begin the year. Now you get a week off after a win. Is that good timing?
Yeah, I do think so. I think it's a good opportunity for us to, we're heading into a bye week, so we can just let it all hang out right now before the bye week, knowing full well that we're going to get a couple days off next week.
How does Towson as a team compare to what you're used to seeing from the other teams in the Southern Conference?
I think they're very similar to a Sanford talent-wise. They're very similar to a UTC talent-wise. They're going to be very skilled athletes. They've got quite a few transfers on their roster. So we've got to be able to kind of do the same thing that we usually do, and that's ball control it.
Fans and really everyone always so focused on the conference standings because at the end of the day, that's most important, but of course, the objective is to win every game. What would a win like this, going to Towson, beating a team from the CAA, what would that mean for the program and for the rest of this season?
Well, I think going into the bye week, you always want to go in on a positive. And for us, if we can go in at 2-2, we'd feel pretty good about getting a week off, getting our legs back underneath us again, getting everybody back healthy again, and preparing for ETSU coming out of it, and you're really starting a big, long conference slate after that.
Taking on Towson for the first time in program history. If there was one team that you could play, is there a dream team out there, a dream opponent that you would love to go up against, or a stadium that you would love to coach in?
Well, I think I've got it with Alabama. I don't know how much of a dream. It may be a nightmare by the end of it, but it certainly will be a dream of a stadium to going up there and playing. There's also, you may want to go against somebody like James Madison, get another shot because Coach Houston he and I worked on the same side for so many years. I thought that may be a little bit of a fun matchup for both of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking on Towson this Saturday, heading to that stadium for the first time, named after Johnny Unitas. Does that add any wrinkles being at a place for the first time? Do you have to do anything differently before the game to familiarize yourself with the territory?
Yeah, we usually walk the field. We usually kind of you got to find the play clocks. Those are kind of know where where's the wind coming out of, where's the stadium scoreboard, where's the sun going to be, is the sun going to be in your eyes, you're worried about their receivers, you're worried about your own receivers, you're worried about your kick returners and your punt returners. Those are all the things that you don't really know because, I know when we go to VMI, I know where the sun sets in the fourth quarter, and that can be very challenging. It sets always there behind the big athletic facility back there. So you got to know all those things. So you got to kind of get accustomed to those.
Did you get the lowdown on any quirks from the stadium from John?
I haven't, but I will. I do know where the visitors. I knew how the visitors set up. He kind of prepped me for that. So I do know. I do have kind of a little bit of an idea, but I probably need to probe them a little bit more.
When I was looking at the coaching staff, one of their defensive coaches had spent a year at the Citadel. Did your time overlap with?
I don't believe it did.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know if there's any familiarity with the coaching staffs between the Citadel and Towson. When you look at the film, you look at this team.
Colin Bauer was here Colin Bauer was the linebackers coach. He was here for the first 2 or 3 months when we were here.
Oh, okay.
He was on the first staff, the previous staff, when Coach Houston came in. He was a graduate assistant for us. We do have a couple of guys on the staff that we know. Justin Harper was the wide receivers coach at LR for me my last year there, and he ended up there. He's the wide receivers coach up there. And I'm good friends with the safeties coach, Joe Tricario.
I imagine you cut off all communication for this week.
Oh, absolutely.
Getting ready for the game with Towson this Saturday. When you look at the film for this team, they beat Villanova, which at the time, Villanova was ranked 10th in the nation, and now Towson coming off a bye, they're ranked 25th. What do you see on the film from this team? What are some challenges for Saturday's game?
Well, they played a great game against Villanova. They want to be a run-oriented football team, and I think they did a good job against Villanova. They created some turnovers, and they created some turnovers on special teams. They got a couple of short fields there. They got a couple of quick scores on them. That's more of the team that I think they want to be. They're very athletic on the defensive side. They've got some big bodies over there on the defensive line. Mostly secondary guys or mostly transfer guys. So we definitely have our work cut out for us on both sides of the ball, but we need to stick to what we do, worry about ourselves, worry about what we're doing, ball control it, and make sure that we kind of stick to our own game plan.
We'll dive into this matchup a little bit more, but just in general, when you compare the two programs' rosters, do you like how you match up with these guys?
Well, athletically, it's a completely different matchup. It'll be a little bit difficult because you don't have any sort of comparison. There's no idea. We don't have very many common opponents there, so you really don't know how you match up. I won't be able to tell until probably midway through the first quarter, maybe the second quarter, of how we really are matching up, and then we've got to probably game plan it from there.
What does that do to your preparation when you may not have those common opponents? You want to see how they play a team with the triple option or what they do in certain situations. How much investigating to go back and look at all these different films does that do for you?
You've got to test them. You've got to test them in every single, what have they prepared for? Find out exactly where their preparation lies. And if you find something, you better attack it early. Otherwise, they're going to make an adjustment for it. Both sides of the ball we've got to be able to test to see if, they can handle the movement and handle our blitzes. On the offensive side, they can handle the downhill run. What are they doing against the veer? What are they doing against the dive? What are they doing against the toss? And then what do we have in the play action game?
Well, we'll continue to break down this matchup between the Bulldogs and Towson, which comes up Saturday. In the meantime, we'll take our final break, come back, dive into this matchup a little bit more. It's the Coach Brent Thompson Show here live from the Marina Variety Store Restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston. Appreciate you coming along. We have one more segment to go when we dig a little bit deeper in this Saturday matchup. The Bulldogs stepping out of conference and heading to Towson. That's coming up next here on the Coach's Show on ESPN Radio 94.7 FM and 910 AM.
We had long deployments in Iraq. Really grateful that USA was able to take care of my family while I was overseas serving.
It was my very first car accident. We were hit from behind. I called USAA, and the first thing they asked was, "Are you okay?" They always thank you for your service, which is nice because as a spouse, you serve too.
We're the Hells, and we're USAA members for life.
See how much you could save with USAA by bundling your auto and home insurance. Get a quote today.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Sorry, Dad.
Sure, you could get him a new car. You could also light a pile of money on fire. Because as long as Mr. It wasn't my fault takes the wheel on occasion, maintaining this car is your best option. So keep it running longer, stronger, with quality parts and a whole lot of Napa know-how.
Dad, where are you going?
These are the moments that move you. Roper St. Francis Orthopedics is South Carolina's leader when it comes to letting you stay in play. Our top-rated program has over 30 specialists across the Lowcountry who are ready to treat all of your moving parts. Call 727-DOCS to keep on moving.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
We had long deployments.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Buying a home is a big financial decision, so you need a strong team working on your mortgage. That team is at South Atlantic Bank. Decisions are made right here in our community by mortgage professionals who really know the Low Country.
South Atlantic Bank offers competitive rates and terms on loans for home purchase or refinance. If you need a mortgage loan, you need the mortgage loan professionals at South Atlantic Bank.
South Atlantic Bank Mortgage Group, providing the keys to home ownership.
Close Shave America, Close Shave Barbasol, Close Shave Barbasol.
Now, try new Barbasol razors.
This is the Pepsi for serious fans and serious eats. This is the Pepsi for Sundays at the ballpark and days off at your favorite pizza joint. Right, Aaron?
Best slice in New York.
Whatever you're craving, this is the Pepsi for you.
What does first alert weather mean? It means you're connected.
To the here, to the now.
To big changes before they happen.
From the everyday to the severe, you need a team that gives you the earliest alert.
When we know, you'll know.
Anywhere you are. Led by the most experienced meteorologist in the Low Country, Live 5 is your weather leader.
Not because we want to be first, because your safety comes first.
First Alert Weather, only from Live 5 News.
Pizza with Pepsi. Delicious.
Final segment here on the Coach Brent Thompson Show from the Marina Variety Store restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston. Great food, great seafood, great views here at the Marina Variety Store. Come join us every Wednesday night during the football season from 7 to 8, or even when we're not around. Come check out this restaurant. Come get something to eat here. Great spot down the road from the Citadel. Talking about this game coming up Saturday between the Bulldogs and Towson with the coach. And have been recapping the win from this past week against Mercer on the road, 38-31. Asking for your questions online by using hashtag AskCoachThompson. And a fan asked on Twitter what the biggest lesson learned for the team was from that Mercer game. What's the biggest thing you could take from that game and apply moving forward?
Well, certainly it's never give up, even when we've gotten down, even when we didn't have the momentum going in at the halftime. Is once again, we just needed somebody to make a play. We needed somebody to take a big shot down the field, and that's certainly what we got. And then it came back to us again. Grant rips off the big run out there, and then I guess Kurt Nixon right there gets tackled, or he tackles over the 6-yard line. I guess the 6-yard line got him. And then we're able to score on that drive. And here we are. We think we're in pretty good shape right there. And then they travel the field. They do a great job of battling back, and the kid makes a great catch. And Jay Howard, as we found out, got mossed on film there. And then after that, it was on, and we didn't know what we were looking at overtime at that point, trying to kill the clock. And the next thing you know is we're not out of this thing again, and Rod Johnson comes through with another big play. When guys can step up and make plays like that, it starts to build confidence in the team that, hey, no matter how far back you are and how far down you are, somebody's going to step up, somebody's going to make a play, just like Noah did. It just didn't work out well in the Wofford game when Noah made a play.
Yeah, after falling behind for 3 straight weeks now, the team has battled back each week to at least erase that deficit, and I think that's been one of the more impressive things is that no matter what has happened through the first 3 weeks, it seems like the team never gets down. They never believe that they're out of it, and they've fought back each and every week, and most recently turned it into a win.
Look, they've made believers out of me, because that's tough. You don't know what kind of football team you have, and I even said it yesterday as I texted. Coach Houston sent me a message just saying, congratulations. I said, yeah, we really just needed one to get over the hump. These guys have been working their butts off. They were really a good bunch of kids. We really just we needed to have some success right there. I really like this group. They've done such a great job, everything we've asked them to do going all the way back to January. So I was just happy for those guys that they did such a great job.
Kafari Buffalo had a big interception in that play, got the ball back for you guys, gave you a chance to go down and tie the game in the fourth quarter, but also injured himself on the play, did not return for the game. How is he progressing this week?
He's doing well. He won't be out there this week, but he certainly will be with us in spirit. He's doing a great job coming back. He's just probably about another week away or so.
Was that a scary moment on the sideline when that play?
Yeah, they saw it on Mercer's sideline, and I didn't realize they'd called our trainers over there. We went over there and we started talking, and we were seeing what was going on right there. And then we kind of got him back too. Waited for him to come back, came back. But really, to the young man's credit is he knew exactly where he was. He knew exactly what the score was because I had to look up and figure out what the score was. I had no idea what it was. So he was a little bit more in tune than I was at that time.
And he made a big play in the process. That interception got you the ball, allowed the Bulldogs to go down and tie, pull off that win, 38-31 at Mercer. And now let's turn our attention back to this upcoming game against Towson coming up on Saturday. And Towson led by the quarterback Tom Flacco, younger brother of Joe Flacco. When you look at the film, do you see any of Big Bro in the quarterback?
A little bit different style of quarterback. He will extend the play. He's a great scrambler. He's got great accuracy. He finds a way to get open. So you really got to contain him, keep him in the pocket. You've got to do a good job of putting pressure on him. Don't let him kind of extend the play. We've got to stick with our guys. We had lost a touchdown last week that way.
The Towson team coming off a bye this past week, so in essence, really 2 weeks to prepare for you guys. Does that put you at any sort of disadvantage?
Yeah, it certainly does. There's no doubt about it. But, coming off a bye week, you just never know what you're going to get coming off of a bye week. You don't know how productive they were. So it can work either way, but it would certainly helps them out just getting another week of rest.
What is their offense like? Are they a hurry-up type of offense?
They do some on-the-line stuff. I think they do a good job of being able to mix it up. I know what they want to do is they do a very good job of it, and that's running the football, and that's really what they did against Villanova. And, whether it is a hurry-up or whether it's a huddle team, is we really got to do a good job of just stopping the run, getting our play calls in, check with me's. Those things can be hard to pick up and hard to track on film. Sometimes what you have to do is go back to video and try to find them on ESPN or something to see if they are a check with me team or a huddle team.
Flacco, as you mentioned, can run a little bit as well from the quarterback position. What does that change for a defense when you also have to account for the quarterback being able to get out and move?
Yeah, it's very challenging. You've got to make sure that you have somebody assigned to him on most plays. On most of your blitz plays, you got to make sure it doesn't get out of the pocket. You got to make sure that he can, you can still cover your guys down the field. And we know he's going to make some plays. It's just a matter of we got to be able to play the next play.
What about playmakers-wise, either receivers or running backs? What do you have to account for there in personnel?
They do have a pretty dynamic playmaker at one of their wide receiver spots. He's got the majority of the catches right there. I think most of those have been on scrambles and just finding a way to get himself open right there. They've got about 3 running backs that do a pretty good job for him. They mix them up. They can average anywhere from about 60 to 70 yards in a game.
Defensively, it looks like they run a 4-3. For the option offense that you run, is there a preference in what sort of defensive front you would rather face?
It's funny. We see so much 50 defense that it's a little bit strange for us to see a 4-3. We may only see about 1 or 2 4-3 teams a year. About 75 or 80% of our defense that we do see is a 50. And we've naturally geared our offense to going against a 50 defense. It's kind of something that's fairly natural to us, as we've seen it all in all 3 games so far. We've seen the 50 defense. So it'll be a little bit unique for us to get the 4-3.
They're similar to Chattanooga in the sense that when you look at the roster, they have a lot of guys from other schools, a lot of transfers. We talked about it before the Chattanooga game. Now let's go back to that topic here for this Towson matchup. How does that affect first them to have all those transfers, then for you guys to have to worry about a team with some transfers like that?
Yeah, they've got a good mixture of FBS and FCS transfers. I think they've got a good mixture of those guys. There are quite a few on the roster. Different thoughts and different philosophies. If you are behind in quite a few positions, you may want to take it. The problem with that is you're going to constantly turn over, so you really keep on having to chase transfers or junior college players, which is just a different philosophy, and you're going to get some really talented players at those positions. And it can't be a philosophy that we have, is we're not going to certainly make our living on fifth-year transfer players, but we are going to fill some needs with those guys. We've constantly got to be a developmental squad, and it's just kind of what makes the Citadel and Citadel football unique, is that we're going to grow up together, we're going to live together, we all live on campus for the most part, we're all going to be able to eat together and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a completely different dynamic between the two programs. One is a complete developmental program, the other one one, you may have to take some transfers and keep filling those in and backfilling those guys with 2-year players instead of 4-year players.
One of the transfers for the Bulldogs, grad student Sean Mccord, had played against Towson previously up there in the Northeast. Were you able to get any additional information from him on this team?
We just a little bit asked about what their talent level is because he's seen both levels of it. He says they're a pretty good team. They do a good job. They're very athletic. They had played them. They had seen them the last couple of years. He thought that they had improved quite a bit from last year to this year.
Speaking of the transfers, that's the big talk, especially in this area because of what's going on at Clemson. But just in general, this new rule in the NCAA allowing players to be able to redshirt prior to 4 games, transfer elsewhere. In general, what are your thoughts on that new rule?
It's an interesting rule because the two rules didn't mean to go together, and they are starting to go together a little bit. Is when we first talked about the 4-game rule, and you could still redshirt after that. It was more about trying to backfill numbers, especially at the FCS level. I was all for it when you have 63 scholarships. You could maximize 63 scholarships instead of having to sit and redshirt 7 or 8 guys a year. Then you're only dealing with 50-something scholarships, and that hits you pretty hard at the end of the year when you're down a couple of guys due to injury. Maybe guys are out for the season. So I thought that was a great thing. And then you add this other dimension into it where you can go on this national registry, and you've seen it. There's a young man out of Sam Houston, I guess, that's doing the same thing. As he's going to play his 3 or 4 games, and then he's going to go ahead and transfer and be an FBS graduate, similar to Kelly Bryant is up at Clemson. So I don't think it was intended for that purpose. I think it's kind of a result of it. We're going to have to see how this thing plays out throughout the rest of all the recruiting that goes down and the transfer game that happens. It's obviously it may affect us on the other end of it, but we're not going to be able to take the transfers on our end unless you do get some 5th years.
Right, that's what I was going to ask you. Is it kind of, you can't take advantage of that part of the rule by getting some of these guys, but other teams can. So in a way, almost this new rule puts you at a little bit of a disadvantage compared to the rest of the competition.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've got our fair share of disadvantages. We can't, we can't sit around and worry about those, as we've got to constantly move on. We know that we're going to be challenged, and we just got to do what we do and hold on to as many players as we possibly can, and keep developing those players and take the players that are good fits for us, guys that are going to be successful not only in your offense and in your defense and on special teams, but at your school, because it is a unique dynamic.
As you touched on, the original intention of the rule is to be able to play freshmen, and they wouldn't, or just young players in general, and they wouldn't lose a season if they only get in, say, 3 games. With such a young team that you have already, are you guys able to take advantage of that rule at all this year, play guys just a little bit and make sure that they still get that year back? Yeah, that's still the plan right now. We still are sitting on some guys right now, as we haven't played guys like John Cole. We haven't played him. We've got to see if that rule will apply to a sophomore. But if it does, that may be something that we can do, is try to get him back in the fold for maybe the end of the year for us. Try to mix him back in, and which is what we're doing. We're progressing them back in. We've also got some guys at the B-back spot that really could benefit for some reps right there that are in the same situation. They may not see reps early, but they're certainly going to see reps later on. A-back is another one. Those guys get injured quite a bit. On the defensive side, we've had to play most of our guys, and we're going to have to play most of our guys, and we won't be able to redshirt or take advantage of too many of those guys over there, but there may be a couple of guys in the secondary that we can do that with, and certainly gain them as much experience as possible. And lastly, we got about 60 seconds. What are some keys to go to Towson, make that long trip, and come back home with a victory on Saturday?
Well, first of all, we can't make too big of a deal out of the trip, right? We're going to be there well in advance of about 24 hours before kickoff, which is about standard for us. That's what we like to do. So we don't want to make too big of a deal of the trip. The trip is the trip. We're going to do it. We've done 2-day trips before. That's not really our concern. So that's first and foremost. We don't want to get beat before we even get beat. Second thing is once we get up there, is let's get acclimated, get accustomed to our surroundings, so that way we can play football. At the bottom line is there's going to be 11 out there on both sides of the football, and they're going to kick it off at 4 o'clock. Don't let anything else bother you. Play your style of game, worry about you. And the same thing every week is the things that we did well last week was, hey, we didn't hurt ourselves, we didn't kill ourselves with too many penalties. We had the one bad celebration penalty, but other than that, those things are going to happen, unfortunately. We've had 2 of them, but when guys get excited, that's what happens. You don't want to curb their enthusiasm too much. You don't want to take 15-yard penalties, but so if you can stay out of the penalty game and keep out of the turnover game and play your style of football, you give yourself a chance to win the game.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time, as always, here every Wednesday, and we wish you the best of luck Saturday in Towson.
Thanks, Luke. I'll see you up there, man.
Absolutely. That's head coach Brent Thompson for the latest edition here of the Coach Brent Thompson Show from the Marina Variety Store Restaurant at 17 Lockwood Drive in downtown Charleston. Make sure you come and check out this restaurant any day of the week, but especially on Wednesdays when we are here from 7 to 8. Every Wednesday, the Coach's Show from 7 to 8 at the Marina Variety Store Restaurant. You can come find us next week and catch it on the air right here, 94.7 FM at 9:10 a.m. ESPN. Don't forget, Saturday's game kicks off 4 o'clock at Towson. The pregame coverage will begin at 2 o'clock on the local stations, 102.1 FM, 92.1 FM, and 1450 AM. Coverage will begin Saturday at 2 o'clock, kickoff at 4 o'clock on those stations. The Bulldogs with a win this past Saturday at Mercer, 38-31. We'll try to make it back-to-back victories this Saturday against Towson. For the coach, Brent Thompson, I'm Luke Morrow, wishing you a happy rest of your Wednesday night. We'll talk to you Saturday from Towson. Go Bulldogs.